Hey, everybody. How's it going? No, I am not Mitch Hoch. Your powers of observation are correct. I am Spencer Israel here with my buddy Chris Katje, filling in for Mitch. He's moving, or at least trying to move. I don't really know how it's going. I assume it's going well. If we don't hear from him, then I guess it means it didn't. But we got some SPACs to talk about today. 3 new SPAC deals happening today. Chris is going to break them all down for us. We will get to your tickers from the chat. We will talk about Chamath Palihapitiya's SPAC and pipe deals. He not so subtly put out a bit of a humble brag there on Twitter of all of the performance of all his deals. So a lot to get to on today's SPACs Attack. Chris, before we get to all that, how was your weekend?
Weekend was great. Super Bowl Sunday, Tom Brady getting another ring. So how about yours, Spencer?
Yeah, it was forgettable. I thought everything about this past weekend was forgettable. I won't remember it in a few weeks, I suspect. So anyway, let's get the show on the road here, Chris, and let's go behind the headlines.
All right, guys. Yeah, so getting to some headlines before we get to those 3 new deals announced today. So up first, we have CCIV. So CCIV, of course, linked to those rumors with Lucid Motors. We talked about this one on the show Friday. Shares were up 15% to end the day on Friday on that continued optimism that the Lucid Motors deal gets done. The CEO of Lucid Motors appeared on CNBC, of course, would not comment on the rumor. He did have a smile on his face, though, as he discussed that. So looks like shares were up on that optimism. They're trading down today. We did have a rumor last week, too, that Lucid Motors would be airing a Super Bowl commercial. Those rumors turned out to be false. So no spike today on, the Super Bowl optimism for Lucid Motors. And then we had a couple of rumors last week. So DCRM was one that we talked about on Friday. Shares ended the day up 20% on that rumor with Hyzon. This is a electrification play for the future. That deal has not been officially announced, but this is one worth watching. Kind of in that sweet space for electrification. Shares are up 13% today, adding to those gains. And then we had a rumor at close on Friday. So this is RTP. So RTP Technology Partners. This is a SPAC we've talked about on the show for quite a while. So this SPAC is backed by Reid Hoffman, founder of LinkedIn, and Mark Pincus, the founder of Benzinga. So great management team here, very experienced, investors in Facebook. They created a social media patent that was actually used in the early design for some of those companies. So shares were up decent on Friday on a rumor that they're taking Hippo, a insure tech startup, public. Looks like we're up about 5% today. Again, strong backing. Hippo is one of those, unicorns out there that's really attacking that insurance market. This deal has not been announced, so we'll kind of keep an eye and see what happens. The SPAC I would point out to watch on the heels of this would be RTPZ. So RTPZ is that second SPAC from Pincus and Hoffman. So if we get the deal announcement for RTP, you could see money shift to RTPZ. Again, if they get that deal done for Hippo, it's going to show that this team, has strength. They found a good target. And if it's well received by the market, I think RTPZ starts to trade higher. So keep an eye on that one on your watch list. And then we talked on Friday, ROCH. So ROCH announced a merger date for taking PureCycle public. So the vote is set for March 16th. So this is a plastics play. Shares are up 13% today. They were up Friday as well. And the one that I would point out is Danimer Scientific. So Danimer Scientific, DNMR, was the last plastic SPAC we got. And it kind of went, unloved, undervalued until it ran into that merger vote date. And it has been running higher now since. So, these plastic sustainability SPACs aren't as popular as the EV plays, but it looks like the market is starting to come around. So keep an eye on ROCH. And then, of course, it wouldn't be Monday without some new deals. So Merger Monday here. So the last 2 Mondays we had 5 deals, we had 6 deals, and then today we have 3 announced deals before market open. So up first we have ARYA. So merging with Nautilus Bio. So this is a single molecule protein analysis platform, looking at pre-revenue for the next couple years. This was done at a $905 million valuation, includes a $200 million pipe. The biotech SPACs, again, they have been hot. They run up, going into that merger vote. So shares are up over 50% today. It looks like people already finding this one. We'll dive into that one more later this week. Second deal we have was GHVI announcing a merger with Matterport. So this is a software and data company. Revenue of $86 million in fiscal 2020, up 87%. They project revenue of $123 million in fiscal 21, $203 million in fiscal 2022. And then, so this was a $2.3 billion deal, over 250,000 subscribers in 150 countries. So they turn buildings into data. So it takes a camera and they can create a 3D image of a building. So, they talk about homes, offices, museums, schools, factories, and retail. They operate with a software as a service model. So during the pandemic, obviously this one, was in the news some as it kind of turned some of those museums into virtual field trips. So, the question is, could we see that as a trend going forward? And also, can they help, with homes and vacation rentals, with these 3D tours of the home? Is that something people can do by themselves, or is that something turn to a company support? So I'll be looking at this one because I like the software as a service business model, with the subscription revenue built in for some of those real estate companies and museums. So keep an eye out for this one. This one was rumored last week. And of course, we got that deal announcement today. And then our third deal today is the big one I really want to dive into. So SNPR. So this is the same SPAC team that brought Hyliion Holdings public. I still own my shares of Hyliion, HYLN. So Tortoise Acquisition Corp 2, symbol SNPR, is taking Volta Industries public. So Volta is another electric vehicle charging infrastructure play. We've seen lots of these deal announcements for SPACs. So valuing the company at $1.4 billion, it's going to give Volta $600 million in net proceeds to fund the build out of that charging network. So Volta is a little bit different from some of those other charging plays. They kind of operate as a media company as well, because they put giant screens at their charging stations that allow the retailers to advertise outside of their existing buildings where those charging stations are, or they're able to sell advertising space to other companies. So, really bringing in a different revenue stream to where these charging stations are actually making money, even if they don't have vehicles hooked up to chargers at the time. So, this one's getting loved by the market, and I think it comes with good reason here. So, the chief technology officer of Volta is Praveen Mandal. So he was the co-founder of ChargePoint, which of course is going public with Switchback Energy, SBE. So Mandal is actually recognized as the inventor of the network charging station concept. So what a great team member to have here for Volta. Tortoise Acquisition Corp 2 shareholders are going to own 17% of that new company. So they have charging stations in 23 states, over 3,000 screens at 1,500 stations. So high growth plans with the electric vehicle market growing. and those vehicles getting cheaper than gas-powered cars over the next couple of years. So the presentation estimates that $25 billion will be spent on public EV charging stations, including Biden's call for 550,000 charging stations. So they also compare themselves to gas stations in the presentation, which I thought was a key here. They call it a $500 billion, market with 150,000 gas stations. So, what happens if we get rid of, gas-powered cars? Who replaces that? Who makes up the revenue? So, if you've been to lots of gas stations, they have those digital screens there, for that additional advertising revenue. And that's kind of the model that Volta has here. So, they estimate that by the end of this year, they'll have over 3,100 stations. They have contracted deals for another 1,100 stations. And then their pipeline calls for 20,000 screens and 10,000 stations across 5,000 sites in the US. So revenue of $47 million for fiscal 2021, but they see that growing over 100% annually, hitting $826 million by fiscal 2025. And in fiscal 2025, they see that revenue split 56% from charging network, 37% from behavior and commerce, and 7% from data. Gross profit of $8 million in fiscal 2020 on margins of 31%. So they see that margin, rising, and their gross margins are actually estimated over 10% higher than competitors like ChargePoint, EVgo, and Blink Charging. So they actually see a $1 trillion market size sitting at that crossroads of vehicle fueling, media, and data. This is a SPAC that should be on your watch list. We've talked charging infrastructures before. I, of course, own SBE merging with ChargePoint, but I really like the advertising play here, to get that additional revenue locked in. And then turning to our votes this week, we do have several notable votes. So up first tomorrow, we have INAQ voting on that merger with Metro Mile, a pay-per-mile insurance company, and PANA voting on that merger with Nuvation Bio. And then on the 11th, we have SBE, which I just mentioned, voting on their merger with ChargePoint. And then on the 12th, we have LGVW voting on that merger with Butterfly Network. So a couple large votes up for this week's calendar. So that's what I've got today for headlines in those 3 deals, Spencer.
Oh, Chris, you jumped the gun. You didn't even give me a chance to play our fancy little calendar video. Can I do it now? Is it too late?
I forgot about the calendar video.
Is it too late? Can I do it now?
Go for it. Go for it. Let's see it.
I'm doing it now. Not even a new calendar. Thanks for nothing, Mitch.
Oh yeah,
man.
No, it doesn't have the new dates. All right.
Oh my goodness. All right. Should we go to our top story of the day? I guess other than the 3 new deals you just outlined. But let's get into the meat of today's show. Chris, my question for you: has anybody parlayed the rise of SPACs into more social cachet than Chamath, Palihapitiya?
I don't believe so. And so Spencer, I tuned in. I watched your show on Friday, right? So at the close, guys, if you don't know, at the close, 3:30 to 4 every day with Spencer and Joel from Pre-Market Prep. So breaking down, some of the top stories and top movers of the day. And what happened on Friday was we talked during SPAC's attack, of course, about Clover Health on Thursday and Friday, getting hit by that report from Hindenburg. So then Chamath went silent for 2 days, and everyone was, expecting him to come out, defend himself, defend Clover Health. So on Friday at about 3:40, he tweets out, about that deal, about Clover. He says, trust the process. He talks about, he links to that Hindenburg response from Clover Health. And then all of a sudden, those Clover Health shares, CLOV, just start going nuts, right? And who else, other than Elon Musk, who else has that power where they can tweet something out and have that kind of immediate reaction? I think that really shows, the trust that people have in Chamath when it comes to SPACs and these deals that he's done. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I want to pull up that chart.
You saw it real time. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts there as that happened?
Yeah, so here's that chart. So this is from Friday. So that big green bar, right? That's at 15:30. That's 3:30. That was right around the time. This is a 15-minute chart, so it was right in that window where you saw shares blast off. What did I think? I think you're absolutely right. There are very few people in the market who have the power to move a stock like that. Elon Musk can do it. Jim Cramer can do it. In the past, a handful of short sellers can do it, though I don't really know what the future of that holds. But the universe of people who can move a stock just by mention of it is not large. And if Friday was any indication, Chamath has clearly entered that group, right? I mean, the best part was the stuff that he tweeted wasn't even new information. It was out Friday morning. The company responded via an SEC filing to the short report from Hindenburg on Friday morning. That was their response. It was out at like 6 a.m. So it was out all day. But at 3:30, Chamath just tweets about it. He didn't tweet anything new. He just tweeted the same information from 12 hours ago. And you see that those two green bars. That was the direct result. So, yeah, very, very interesting stock reaction to what wasn't even new news, but it just shows you how much his influence has risen in the last 6 months or so, right?
Yeah, and I mean, so yeah, he hadn't tweeted in 2 days or a day and a half, and then out comes this tweet, and it's just it's literally just showing the Clover response, as you just said, Spencer, that had already been out. I mean, there wasn't anything new,
right?
Except
Nothing
for
new.
him saying
nothing new, nothing new at all.
Yeah, trust the process and the facts is what he said in that first tweet. So again, he's just showing that, hey, I did Clover Health for a reason, because part of that attack from Hindenburg really centered around did Chamath know that there was a Department of Justice inquiry, right?
Right.
Did Chamath actually do his due diligence and research? So clearly Chamath, saying trust the process, I think shows that, hey, I know what I bought into, and I'm fully aware, and I support Clover Health. And then those shares going nuts, I mean, to levels they hadn't seen in 2 days since that report was issued. I think everyone expected a reaction from Chamath and a tweet, but I didn't expect shares to jump quite that much right off the bat, which I guess maybe we should expect by now, but it's nuts.
I mean, that's the takeaway, right? Is you now, just like when you used to have Donald Trump's Twitter account open just because you never knew when he was going to move the market. I mean, those days are over now, but add Chamath to that list, right? Of people whose Twitter you have to keep like one eye on. And Brent Slava from our news desk knows this as well as anyone. Just you never know. Now that we know that Chamath has that kind of an influence, you just never know. So keep one eye. So he tweeted this out. The tweet that I'm pulling up here is actually a second tweet from this one is at 5:34 p.m. And he just tweeted this table, right, Chris? Tell us what this table is.
Yeah, so this table is 12 SPACs. So some are former SPACs and most are current. So these are 12 SPACs that Chamath has either done himself or he has been part of the pipe, where he invests alongside the SPAC deal. So 12 deals here. And, without trying to, criticize him, it's quite the flex, right? Because Chamath comes out with this tweet saying, trust the process. And he's able to put out in front of people this table showing, hey, I've done 12 SPAC deals and they are all up since I was part of them, lifetime to date. And then it also shows week to date and year to date. And the majority of them are up there as well. And the laggard, is Clover. So it's essentially showing, hey, Clover's down right now, but look at what happened to all the other SPACs I did.
Yeah.
So I think that's very, very strong here. and I want to dive into that. So, you look at those returns, they're kind of all over the place, but you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 12 are up over 100%. Actually six are up over 100%, lifetime to date since that SPAC deal was done. So, full disclosure, I want to get into what I own out of this group. So
Okay.
I own IPOD, SPRQ, and SPCE currently. And then in the past, I owned DM, and I also owned OPEN when it was IPOB. So, I own 3 of them. I've owned 5 of the 12. I think, that shows, he's been a part of some of these big deals. And, you look at that top one, SPCE, Virgin Galactic, I mean, up 443%. That was one of the big SPACs that really kind of kicked off this new wave of SPACs and the popularity, because you had, a space company going public. You had Richard Branson involved, and then you had Chamath involved, who wasn't as well known at the time, but he was an early Facebook member.
Yep.
He was very bullish on Tesla, Amazon, Slack. So a good sense of investment. So but those Virgin Galactic shares actually dipped below $10 after that deal went through. And then now look at them, up 443%. Like that's kind of insane in this short amount of time.
And let's not act like it's Chamath has like the magic touch, because as you know better than anyone, Chris, SPACs by and large, the tide is rising, right? And a rising tide sort of lifts all ships, or at least most of the ships. So Chamath has clearly benefited from a thematic change, right? SPACs are on fire. Excuse me, and he's got a bunch of them. So great for him. So I want to just caution that I don't think this is the case of just stocks don't go up necessarily because it's Chamath. They go up because Chamath is involved in a theme that is on fire right now. Would you agree?
Yeah, and one of the things Mitch and I talked about Clover last week, which I think a lot of people may have missed, is when that deal was announced, so IPOC, that really didn't take off. Shares were trading at $10 and like 11 cents.
Do you remember when that was, around like what day or week or month?
I don't off the top of my head, but
go into Benzinga Pro and find out. How about that?
Yeah, so when that deal was announced, so if I go back to like July and August, so I think the deal was announced before then, but so it looks like a spike in June. So I would guess that it was announced in June. Shares went up, between 11 and 12, but already in July, shares were trading down to, around $10, which is the floor for SPACs, right?
Yeah.
So this deal really didn't get that much love. He went on CNBC with the CEO of Clover. They talked about the deal. So it got that initial spike, but then everyone was like, I don't know. This is Medicare. This is health insurance. So it traded off, down to $10. And that's when Mitch and I said, hey, you want an entry on this one, again, $10 is the floor. So you have, your risk reward here is, great potential. And then shares started going up to, $15, $16 before that vote went through. And then they fell again. And then, the short report came when shares were already down from their highs. And, it really took the wind out of this one that, as I said last week, a lot of trader groups are really, backing the long-term potential of Clover as a Medicare play. And I won't take that away. Medicare, I think, is a growing field, and the new administration, is certainly going to add to the story there. But this one just, it wasn't loved from the start. So, I would caution anyone, trying to chase this up now on Chamath's tweet, as nothing has changed. The story we said is, they need to announce more deals. They have a deal with Walmart that's only in a couple states. And everyone, expects these big deals to come from Walgreens or CVS. But so far, there's no new deals, no new announcements. So everyone's trading this higher just off of Chamath defending the company.
Yeah. Something else to consider is we are still only like less than a year into the SPAC mania, right? So Virgin Galactic closed what, end of 2019 maybe.
Yep.
DraftKings was early 2020, if memory serves.
Yep.
I mean, it may not have that right, but
Yep. Middle
by
of
and,
2020 for
yeah.
DraftKings.
So by and large, I mean, I guess you could say last summer was when the mania kind of began with Nikola. But we still don't really. There's not a lot of history there. There's not a lot of trading history there.
Yep,
Right.
exactly.
So we don't really know how these companies are going to behave in the public markets. We don't have a lot to go off of. Like, we know generally IPOs tend to trade a certain way, right? We know a lot of them, most of them get a 1 day pop. The vast majority will eventually will one day trade below that IPO price, and then the ones that do well come back, and the ones that don't do well don't. But we really don't have those same kinds of historical patterns and knowledge on SPACs. The vast majority of these things, if they have closed and the merger has gone through, it's only been public for a handful of months.
Yep.
So we just don't have a lot to go off of. So it's sort of anything can happen. It means your risk is higher. So is your reward, but your risk is higher.
Yeah, and I think Spencer, if you pull up that chart again of the 12 deals he's done,
yeah,
I think one of the important things is, to me, it reminds me a little of Cathie Wood and ARK, right? Where you're investing in what you think are the top growing industries going forward. So Chamath is trying to diversify himself, and he's trying to hit on, some top growth areas. So we have SPCE, which is space, right? Which could be a huge growth market. We have a space ETF coming from ARK. Then we have Open, which is, digital and online real estate, which is another growing trend. Then we have Clover, which is digital health and Medicare. Then we have IPOD, which hasn't announced a deal yet. IPOE is SoFi, which is digital payments, digital wallets, which is a huge growing market that Cathie Wood also highlighted in her big ideas. Then we have IPOF with no deal announcement. We have MP. So MP Materials is rare earth mining, which is going to help power electric vehicles, wind power, and other industries. Then we have DM, so Desktop Metal, which is 3D printing and manufacturing 2.0, which is another area that Cathie Wood also highlighted in her big ideas. We have INAQ, which is the pay per mile insurance company that he was part of the PIPE, that Mark Cuban is also an investor in. So again, changing the face of insurance going forward. We have ACTC, which is Proterra, which is an electric bus, electric vehicle company. So again, focusing on the growth of electric vehicles. We have TSIA, which is Latch, which is a software as a service company. And then we have SPRQ, which is Sunlight Financial. So they help fund solar deals for commercial and residential. So solar energy, which under the Biden administration has been one of the hot topics. So here you have, Spencer, what do you think? I mean, those all sound like huge growing industries to me. So I think Chamath is diversifying himself, but also really focusing on some of the high growth areas that, might also play into why these SPACs are trading higher, because they're very trendy, total addressable market growth industries.
I want to answer your question with a question: is how the hell do you remember all that?
Serious
question. I'm not even joking.
I got a new nickname from the show last week, Spencer. You want to hear it?
Yeah. What is that?
Someone in the chat called me Chrisipedia.
It fits. It fits. How the hell do you remember all that? I was saying on Friday on pre-market prep is I haven't committed all these post merger SPACs to memory, like, at all. Like, I've like a couple, like Hyliion, Nikola, like there was like a half dozen that I either committed to memory, but the rest of them I just haven't.
I'm blessed with a good memory. I've always had a good memory, good at memorizing, data, dates, tickers. I loved history when I was in school, and I was very good at memorizing, people, places, things, dates. and
Yeah.
it just stuck. So, and now I have a lot of tools available with SPACs where I'm constantly looking, and it just, the tickers stick with me, luckily. So
then, like, I finally, let's take LCA, which is now Golden Nugget Online, right? I finally commit LCA to memory, and then boom, switch, and I'm supposed to forget that and get GNOG in my head. It's like,
yeah, and so one of the things Mitch actually talked about last week was tickers, right? And the companies that are smart with having these memorable tickers, right? Because then it's so much easier, and it sticks in your mind, which obviously if you go, look at a broker, you look at Benzinga Pro, you can type in, the name of the company, and normally you can find the ticker, but, some certainly stand out. So, but so Spencer, I want to tell you some data I found on these 12 Chamath deals. So what I did was I shared that post from Chamath on Twitter. And I have a lot of followers who, obviously are interested in SPACs. I follow a lot of people on Twitter who, also dive into SPACs. So I wanted to ask the question, there's been 12 SPACs from Chamath that he's done, or those pipes. So my question was, how many are you currently holding, and how many have you been invested in at some point? So the answer for me, which I posted and I just said, was I own 3 of the 12 now, and at some point I've owned 5 of the 12. So Spencer, I got 33 responses. What do you think the average was for out of 12 that people currently hold?
Currently hold?
Yep.
You currently hold 3.
Yep.
And the average response, I certainly, oh man, this is gonna freak me out. I certainly hope it's not like more than 5 or 6, like more than 5. Is it more than 5?
At 5.3 was the average currently held.
Oh man, that makes me nervous.
Okay, so now the second part of the question. So again, 33 responses.
Yeah.
How many out of the 12 did people own at some point? What was the average?
Probably like 7.
7.5.
I swear I didn't see this. I'm just guessing.
No, no. Spencer did not know this. This was a segment I wanted to do, and I wanted to ask. And I think there's lots of takeaways from that data, right? Which again, this was a small sample size, 33 people, and again, skewed towards people who invest in SPACs. So you're not looking at your everyday stock investor. But I think that shows again. So I follow a lot of great SPAC accounts, and I try to invest in, value too, right? SPACs that trade under $11. But I also invest in the management team. And when you look at management teams, I mean, Chamath is one of the best SPAC people out there right now at getting deals done, getting publicity, right? The guy goes on CNBC to announce his deals and, talk about them. He's been on, the morning show. He's been on the lunch show. And then, he tweets about them, and his Twitter followers too. I don't know if that's something you've ever looked at, Spencer. He used to have, 600,000, and now he's got over 1.3 million. So his followers have doubled, in the past couple months. And of course, that came from, SPAC deals, the GameStop saga, right? And talking about, investing in GameStop. He explored running for governor of California. So he's gained quite a few followers from these different events. But, I think it really shows that people that invest in SPACs want some exposure to Chamath based on that success rate he has. And, again, that tweet from him, it was a flex showing, how all his SPACs have turned positive lifetime to date, but also, it's the results. That's data. It's not like he made this up. Those are the facts.
I want to go back to your previous point though, before I answered your question with a question, which was about Chamath and Kathy Wood and this entire like future trade. So right now, the future is a hot investment, right? Future industries, growing industries, AI, Internet of Things, robotics, whatever, space, emerging industries. That's a hot play right now. but it won't always be a hot play. Like emerging industries are like every other investing theme, in that there are cycles, right? There will come a time eventually where that will become out of favor, and like, I don't know, value, just to name one, for example, will become back into favor, right? Value stocks. It hasn't happened for a long time. Value's been out of favor for, gosh, like a decade now, maybe more. But there will come a time where there is that rotation, and emerging technologies, emerging industries do rotate and become out of favor. So I would just caution that just because that theme is in favor right now, it does not mean it always has to stay that way. It will not always stay that way. Tech basically had a lost decade from 2000 to 2010, and then made it all back and then some in the decade after that. But there is going to be rotation. I don't know when. I'm long, one of Kathy Wood's funds myself, so I'm in the same boat, right? It's just I'm always mindful of the fact that she won't stay hot forever. Chamath will not stay hot forever. That's just not how this game works. And I try not to forget that. That's my point.
Yeah,
sorry to rain on the parade, but that's
I think you're spot on, and I love showing the risk reward here, right? Yeah. And as some of these SPAC deals, and so last week we talked about IPOD and IPOF, right? So his two current SPACs that are out that don't have targets, so no targets, no rumors, and they're trading at high premiums, right? Because again, you're betting on the management team. I own IPOD, but I got in, around 12, which is still, a premium to the $10 floor. But you have people now chasing these higher, based on Chamath's results. And again, as I said with Clover, that one traded down to 10 after the deal was announced. So you do have some risk here buying these. But I think the initial hope is that as soon as the deal's announced, and he goes on CNBC, you're going to see a spike. And I think, as much as I hate to admit that, I think that's, kind of a given at this point, that they will spike higher on the news. But the question is, where do they end up, after a couple days or on that first day? I mean, the last two pipe deals that he did, so like SPRQ, which I got in, those shares spiked on the deal announcement. I waited, because I wasn't going to buy that. I mean, look at that spike. I wasn't going to buy that at 20. So I waited till those dipped down to 12, and then I bought at 12.
And now you're flat. Yeah.
And yeah, now I'm flat, and I'm saying, hey, this is a solar company. I want solar exposure in my portfolio because of the administration. And, I was able to have my risk reward, know my limits. I put in that limit order at 12, and I was able to buy shares. So, you look at that spike up and that's just him being part of the pipe. This isn't even Chamath's SPAC. And the other question is, what happens? So, as we've said on the show before, Chamath wants to do IPO-A all the way to IPO-Z. So he's already reserved tickers. So he wants to do all these SPACs. So right now we're all the way to IPO-F, and he launched IPO-D through F at the same time. What happens when IPO-G, IPO-H, and IPO-I are announced? What kind of premium do those units trade at before they're even common shares? What kind of warrants does he offer? Because that's another thing we've seen with these units as people do more deals. So like Michael Klein with the Churchill, Alec Gores with the Gores Metropolis, you used to be able to get half or a third of a warrant with these units. Now you're seeing some of these units come with no warrants or like an eighth of a warrant. So then you're not getting that premium anymore to buy the units. You're paying the premium to get the units. So I think that's an important note too. And when do we get that announcement from Chamath, that he's launching more SPACs? Or because of him exploring running for governor, does this take a step back? So he said on the All In podcast, he's not ready to run for governor. But then he backed up and he said he doesn't know how he would do it for regulatory purposes. What would he have to do with the companies that he chairs and he owns stakes in? So to me, I don't think he's going to run. But I think he's leaving the door open at least, which I think means maybe we don't get new SPAC issuances from him until that's officially ruled out.
Oh, oh man. Don't scare the market like that, Chris. We will get to some tickers in the chat, I promise. I just want to, kind of keep going on this theme for just a second. Chris, you just said something that was very interesting. With regards to the premiums that these pre-merger SPACs get, right? And understand that there are multiple groups of people in investing in these things, right? There are people who are only buying this for that post merger announcement pop, that CNBC interview pop, and that's fine. That's totally fine. If that's how you're going to play this, and you can make money, then have at it, right? But if you're a long-term investor, understand that that short-term price action's probably going to factor in to how, even if you believe in the long-term story, if you believe in solar, you believe the management team, all that's great, but in the short term it might not matter. So for example, I bought Hyliion in I think August, maybe even late July, I don't remember, before the merger, and I thought I was buying this for a long-term trade. That's what I thought. And what happened is it ran up. You can't see the ticker because this is the post-merger ticker, but it ended up running up so much into the merger that within a month I had double my money, and I was like, all right, I'm done. Like I'm just gonna take my money and leave, and that's what I did. And so right now it's back to where I bought it. So maybe I should buy it back if I really do believe in the company. Because that's why I thought I was buying it, but I couldn't look a gift horse in the mouth, right?
And I'll say I bought Hyliion in, I think, July.
Yeah.
Right. And I paid around 14 or something a share. And when those things hit the $40 to $50 level,
it's hard not to sell.
I sold some, right? So I cut my position. So I still own shares of HYLN. And I did what, Mitch and I and others, I'm sure, referred to as playing with the house's money, right? So my cost basis is out. I already made a profit. So now my HYLN shares that I own, I don't have as much of a risk. All I'm losing is the potential that I could have sold them at, which, looking back, I probably, wish I would have sold all of that $50 a share, certainly.
Yeah.
But now it's about the long-term story. And, that's when we look at these charts, one of the trends that's becoming clear is the majority of these SPACs sell off after the vote goes through. So then the question is, do they ever spike back up or no? So you look at HYLN there, and the answer is no. But then you look at like Desktop Metal, so DM, those shares, which they're actually up big today. So those shares, you look at that peak before the merger vote in December, then they sold off, right? Huge sell-off. And now they're actually trading at their highest they've ever traded at. So, you have several buying and selling opportunities if you follow the chart and the trends, and that's what we're trying to show, with SPACs Attack is, don't chase. Don't buy these shares, going into the vote date at all-time highs. Know your risk reward and, either look for a good entry point or maybe you skip that SPAC. There's so many SPACs out there. Why would you chase on, one when you could go to a different one and have a lower risk? That's what I would say.
Okay, I don't want to leave. I don't want to end the show without getting into some ticker time. So let's do some ticker time right about now. All right, drop those tickers in the chat. I know there was a bunch that were dropped in that I probably missed. I apologize. I'm going to scroll back up, but I did see CCIV, I believe, just a moment ago. So let's just start with that. I'll bring the chart back up. I don't know why I took it down. CCIV, Chris, can you talk about this?
Yeah, so CCIV, guys, so Churchill Capital, we've talked about so many times that, again, we just talked about premium to a pre-deal announcement. This deal has not been announced. Lucid Motors is a rumor. If this doesn't go through, or even if this goes through at a higher valuation than originally, expected, these shares could sell off. So I still own shares of CCIV, but I did cut part of my position last week on Friday. So again, my risk reward here is different from other people. So when I bought CCIV, I bought around $12 to $13. So I'm comfortable holding some of those because my risk is $10. But anyone chasing this in the $30, I mean, you're really playing, hoping it's going to be Lucid Motors. So be very careful out there. This deal is far from being officially announced.
What about, all right, I just brought it up there, SVAC, Starboard Value. This is one that, full disclosure, I am long. It is one of two SPACs that I own. I bought this because Dennis Dick, who, if you listen to our pre-market prep show, you know him, convinced me to buy it because he was like, there's no way that the guys over at Starboard are going to get a bad deal. And I was like, oh, Dennis must be right. And I feel like a schmuck because it's done nothing. It's done absolutely nothing. So have you heard any rumors about this one?
I haven't heard any rumors. The one thing I'll tell you, Spencer, and I know you're a big ETF guy, is one of the 3 SPAC ETFs actually has this SPAC as their top holding now.
Is it SPACX? Because I've got that.
I think it is that one. They've been adding to this position. So Starboard, I again, great management team, great name. I think they land a good target, and it does surprise me when you talk about management teams and premiums that this one's only trading around that $11 mark, because you have a lot more, with great management teams trading up closer to 12. So this could be a good play as people find it and kind of move to better management teams to maybe diversify their risk reward.
I mean, the Starboard guys, like, maybe to the newer investor, they don't know who Starboard is, but Starboard is like a massive hedge fund. They're super successful. This guy's like print money. Yep. So I would have thought that if anyone's going to get a premium, it's them because this is their game. But so far, that is not the case. And whatever. I'll wait and see on that one. Do you have any thoughts on the management team on FPAC? Do you know that? Far Peak?
FPAC. This was one we talked about on our crypto show. So Thomas Farley, he is the former president of the New York Stock Exchange. This is his SPAC. And when he was with the New York Stock Exchange, he was bullish on crypto and Bitcoin. So I think they're targeting fintech. And to me, this could go after a crypto play, which obviously we're seeing Bitcoin hit all-time highs today. So some of these SPACs that are linked to a possible crypto play, when you have large targets out there like, Coinbase, eToro, Gemini, and others, I think these crypto SPACs start to go higher. So I do like this one with that management team.
And then when you talk about companies that could be acquired, there really are only a handful. You frequently hear Coinbase mentioned.
Coinbase has announced an IPO, so it looks like
they did. I missed that.
Yeah, so it looks like they're actually going the IPO route. Again, that's what they filed, but that doesn't mean, something couldn't change between now and then. But I think that one's off the table, but you do have some other, crypto names out there. So Gemini from the Winklevoss twins, I know has explored going public, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them go the SPAC route. eToro is looking to go public. And I think, a SPAC deal could make sense for them. So there are a couple other names out there. I know Coinbase got all the love and all the headlines, but, it looks like they're going to go either a traditional IPO or a direct listing at this point.
What about Colonnade Acquisition, CLA?
So trying to pull up CLA. I don't know if I know this one off the top of my head. This was a LiDAR one, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly
Ouster,
right.
Yep. So CLA acquired Ouster. So this is a LiDAR play. The thing with LiDAR at this point is we've seen 5 or 6 SPAC deals now for LiDAR. So it's very crowded. There's a lot of players out there. And I think until this sorts itself out of who's got the big LiDAR deals with the large auto companies, it's very hard to pick the winners and losers here. But, as we talk the large number of SPACs, I don't know if there's room for everybody in that LiDAR market to trade at the premiums that they have right now.
What about BTAQ, Burgundy Technology, named, of course, after the great news anchor Ron Burgundy. Chris, thoughts?
Yeah, so BTAQ is one that I own. It's a favorite of mine. It was on our 10 to 11 show. So speaking of eToro, this is a company they listed in their prospectus that they're focused on Israel, which has some huge, private companies looking to go public, and some of them have with IPOs recently. And so they have the former CEO of HP and SAP. They also have the guy who was at BlackBerry and turned BlackBerry from a phone company into a software end-to-end focused company. So I love the management team here, and I think they get a good deal. And I'm hoping they land one of those private Israeli companies that's really growing there.
All right, we'll do a couple more here, and then we'll wrap it up. What about Star Peak? STPK.
So Star Peak, this is the one that acquired
$36.
STEM. What did you say, Spencer?
Sorry, $36. I was surprised to see it that high.
Yeah, so this is a battery play. So, again, there's lots of battery SPAC deals. This is the one that everyone's kind of been jumping on recently. I know on CNBC, I think one of the anchors there for the closing show has mentioned this one as his favorite and a winner. They also have signed a couple recent deals for energy distribution. So lots of news, lots of headlines with this one. And obviously, energy distribution could be a big story, as we switch to electric vehicles and a more sustainable future with the new administration.
CLOV, Clover, we discussed that one at length, and Kush, so rewind there, and we will, I don't think we need to cover that one anymore. Let's see. There's a bunch of tickers flying here. MP, did we not discuss it earlier? I think we did.
We did. Yep. MP was one of the Chamath pipes.
Right. Okay. Let's do like one more. Let's do like, wow, there's so many and they all look the same. Gosh, I don't know. There's all these symbols and they all look exactly the same. All right, I'm just gonna randomly pick one. What about PANA?
So PANA has that vote date set for this week. It's a biotech SPAC. I know my SPACs well, but if there's one area I don't know, it's the bio SPACs, because they're all over the place. And I've never been a big bio investor because again, you're betting on the future development of these drugs. So, you talk risk reward, it's definitely different with some of these bio SPACs. So I don't know enough about this one to really give an opinion.
All right. We went 55 minutes with no guest, but we have a guest on the books tomorrow and another one on Wednesday. We should be getting one every day. But Chris, how did I do on day one of filling in for Mitch this week? Because I think he's out for most of the week.
You did great. I'm happy to run the show with you, Spencer. We've done the show before. For anyone who hasn't watched, Spencer's filled in, for Mitch before. So this show, we've been going for months, and it's really been me and then Mitch. And then when Mitch isn't here, it's Spencer. So there's really only been three of us running this show. So again, we're trying to bring, the information to you guys. Do your own research. This is not financial advice by any means, but we want to provide you with the tools and that data to really do your own research. We use Benzinga Pro here. If you don't have a Benzinga Pro membership, you can get a 2-week trial for free.
Right.
And again, I'll encourage you guys, please smash the like, please hit subscribe. We're running all day now with great content. So we have several shows. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for the next show. We'll be going all day today, and there's something, for every viewer out there.
Yep. So smash that like button, as Chris said. Coming up, not next. Well, I guess in a few minutes we're gonna have Zinger Nation Power Hour. The young investor is back. Luke Jacoby, Jason Raznick, and their merry band of misfits will take you for a couple hours into the afternoon, but I'm going to let Chris hop here, and I myself am going to take a quick break, but we will be back, as I mentioned, in a few minutes with the guys who who keep the zaniness, the zing and zinga. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, Zinger Nation Power Hour will be up in a couple of minutes. And Chris, thanks a lot. I look forward to chatting with you again tomorrow.
Thanks, Spencer. Thanks, everybody.